Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I want to spend some time today talking about writing evaluations, and I want to begin with the usual disclaimer that all borrowed images and quoted text are used for educational purposes. I'm trying to keep with the spirit of giving proper credit as best I can. When we talk about evaluations, I think it's important to understand that they are perhaps the most common argument. As always, I am talking with the firm belief that everything is an argument. And the quotation from the textbook, Everything's an Argument, points out that arguments of evaluation can produce simple rankings and winners. So the Academy Awards are an argument of evaluation. This actor or this film was better than the other actor or the other film. The Pulitzer Prize, this writing was better than all of the other writing. MVP votes in whatever sport. This player was more valuable to his team than any other player was valuable to his or her team. The best dressed lists, of course, it can be bad. The Razzies, they are for the worst films of the year. And I had to throw in one of my favorite YouTube video series of all time, Worth It, where these three guys would go around and taste a low priced, medium priced, and high priced item, and then to say which one was worth it based on the price. And they had a ranking. This one, first, second, and third. They are also perhaps way more important than just the simple lists. You made an evaluative argument to some degree when you decided which college was best for you to attend. We make evaluative arguments when we decide which phone, which computer, which car, which high ticket item of any kind. Or we decide we're going to stick with the phone or the car or whatever it is we have for another year. We're going to avoid buying. That's still an evaluative argument. Should I vote for city commission? That's an evaluative argument. They are important arguments. I mean, the city commissioners have more control over our lives than the president or the Congress. They are important. And sometimes they're just simple lists. Either way, evaluation arguments are common and important, and I think we need to take them seriously as we work to develop an evaluative argument. We're going to start with qualitative arguments because for the assignment that I'm handing out, it's basically going to be qualitative. Number one, it's not numbers and statistics. An MVP vote might be based just on numbers, home runs or games played or points scored or any of those things can be part of the evaluative argument. We're not doing that. It's going to be a qualitative argument. It can appeal to the emotions, it can refer to values, it can refer to traditions. And because they don't rely on numbers, they're going to be abstract. Abraham Lincoln was a better president than George Washington. There are no numbers to point that out. You don't have a bunch of presidential statistics. Abe signed 47 bills in his first 3 days. George only signed 6. We're arguing in some ways, was it more important to establish the republic and guide it through those first 8 years? Or was it more important to preserve the Union and conduct the Civil War in a manner that allowed the United States to be in a place to grow and develop after the Civil War? What song had the biggest impact on kids growing up in the 1990s? Or the early 2000s for that matter? First of all, you're going to probably have to define what impact means. You're going to have to look at the culture, but a lot of songs that had impact may not have been the best seller. And it's the same for the athlete as the greatest athlete of the 21st century. If we go across sports, if we go across anything, it might not just be the numbers. And we're even going to have to argue what an athlete is. For example, if I would argue about the 20th century, I might make an argument for Secretariat, a racehorse, to be the greatest athlete of the 21st century. Number one, on a qualitative argument, you're asked to make a judgment. We've used the Nick Shabazz good, great, bad, ugly rubric in class. And sometimes you're not going to have a good and a great element. Sometimes you're going to deal with the lesser of two evils. Either way, you're making a judgment. Or you're challenging a judgment. You are saying that a person is correct and here's why, which is supporting a judgment. Or you are arguing that the judgment that somebody makes is wrong. Either one of them is part of a qualitative argument. And sometimes one might use a few numbers to prove that, but for the most part, when you're challenging a judgment, you're not saying that the numbers they're using are wrong. You are arguing that their interpretation of the numbers is wrong. And so please make sure as you're making a qualitative argument that you don't rely on the numbers, even though there's the math fractal element on the slide. Make sure you're dealing with the challenge to a judgment, why it's wrong, how it's wrong, and if there are numbers involved, it's about the interpretation of the numbers, not the numbers themselves. Third, you can make a ranking. Poznansky makes a ranking of the most important 100 baseball players of all time. When you look at his ranking, he doesn't necessarily go top to bottom. He tries to match numbers up. For example, I believe Joe DiMaggio is number 56 in his book because of the 56-game hitting streak. And sometimes you have criteria that are not top, bottom, whatever all else. There are criteria that fit with the event. This is not my list of criteria for my favorite Thanksgiving Day foods. Mac and cheese does not make my getting seconds list. Potato casserole probably doesn't make my getting seconds list. Apple pie absolutely makes my getting second list. But turkey and ham and biscuits or rolls all make my getting seconds list. And so as we kind of run through what makes something good, well, I'm going to get seconds. What makes something solid, I look forward to it every year. What makes something for the experience, well, it's the tradition. Think through nearly everything that you're doing and think through how you can develop a ranking for something as you're making a qualitative argument. And finally, qualitative arguments explore the criteria used to make a judgment. In other words, you're not just attacking the judgment, you're attacking the criteria used to make the judgment. So, for example, on Green's essays, if he talks about something and you think that his view doesn't include sustainability and it should, you're attacking you're making a qualitative argument because you're exploring the criteria he used. If you argue that Green should be more unbiased than what he is, you are developing an argument with some criteria and you're attacking the criteria that he's using. Think through what are the criteria you use and what are the criteria others use, and are those criteria valid for the evaluations being made? All of those are qualitative arguments, and all of those are valid ways to evaluate something. Evaluative arguments often require definitions. What makes something irrelevant? How does one determine whether something is significant or unreasonable? How does one determine competency? You need to define all of those terms as you're evaluating something. And people can attack your definition as being a, a criterion that is ineffective. There's always a cause and effect element. For example, was somebody incompetent because of their talent level, or was somebody incompetent because they grew up in Florida and driving in a blizzard was a totally new experience to them? The blizzard caused them to be incompetent. If they're driving in big city traffic, they might be more competent than if they're driving on an icy rural road. What's the cause of everything? Once you've properly defined it, is there a cause and effect element? The fact that we're insignificant causes us to be safe. There's often comparisons and contrasts. So, for example, DC movies often have darker themes than Marvel movies. I have to define what a darker theme is. I have to contrast a DC movie with the Marvel movie to illustrate that there's darker themes. And in fact, since it's movies plural, I might have to do 2 or 3 different movies. On the second example, the cowboy is more culturally relevant to the United States than the samurai is to Japan. I have to define cultural relevance. I have to look at the role the cowboy plays in the United States, the role the samurai plays in Japan, and then I have to compare and contrast those roles. And again, I have to tie them to the concept of being culturally relevant. I spent a lot of time in my classes talking about being curious, talking about who and what are good starters, but why, when, where, and how are more important. To add some of the questions that one does when one is modifying nouns: what kind, which one, how many, how much, or whose, those questions for adjectives. The how, when, where, to what extent are part of adverbs. Think through how and why you're making the evaluation, how and why somebody else is making the evaluation. What are the big questions one can ask? And how can one evaluate any piece of writing, any film? How can one develop an evaluation? What criteria work? And why do those criteria work? Arguments have been claim data warrant throughout the class. Sometimes you might have to throw a reason in between as you do your claim data warrant. And sometimes you might have to have a warrant for the reason before you throw your data in there. Stupid, but I think effective sample. Cookies are the superior sweet dessert because they are portable. The most important element of a dessert should be its availability. I've got a claim, I've got a reason, I've got a warrant. If I'm evaluating it, I have to anticipate some objections. Are cookies a snack or a dessert? That's first of all, I have to define it. Second, why is portability more important in a dessert than the texture of the dessert, than the healthy side effects, than the appearance, than the variety? All of those things have to be a part of the discussion. So the judgment about portability can be attacked at multiple levels. Limit the claims, have a specific thesis. Polka music is the worst music ever created. That can be an opinion, but it's not something that you can write in a paper and expect to be taken seriously. Because it repeats 4 measures and maintains a constant rhythm, polka music is less sophisticated than jazz. That's a limit. That's an argument. That's a specific thesis. Avoid phrasing like "this podcast sucks." You may have to concede a point and then keep developing it. And organization of the paper should build to the strongest point. I think that that's super important all the way through. And one of the things to think about when working towards the strongest point is there a point that needs to be buried a little bit because it's weaker than the other two? Do you start with your second strongest point, work to your third, and then build to the biggest one? It's a valid way to think about working through the paper. I suppose I should talk just a bit about quantitative arguments. They can be measured, they can be counted, they are oftentimes numbered based. Think through, the numbers, but as I've said earlier, you're going to not attack the numbers necessarily in the qualitative. You're going to attack the use of the numbers. If you are making a quantitative argument, the numbers themselves aren't enough. The fact that Phelps won more gold medals doesn't necessarily mean he was a better swimmer than Spitz. Maybe there were not as many events for Spitz to compete in. Okay? Today is warmer than yesterday. If both days are 30 below or close to 30 below, it's not really warmer. Why do the numbers matter? One of the things with quantitative arguments is, why do the numbers matter? And then finally, think through not just what are they measuring, but what are the implications? And do they matter to what we're talking about? I think that that's kind of the key. Is it relevant to the subject at hand? How valid are the numbers to the situation at hand? I'm not going to spend much time on quantitative arguments because the essay I've assigned is about qualitative arguments. Again, I hope everybody has a good day. Hope to see you all in class the next class period.